I want to measure distance on a number line. I have a question, for example, how far away is the number 5 on the number line? Now to answer this question, I know I need a reference point, because if I'm asking the distance to 5, I must start measuring somewhere. So I'm going to call 0 my reference point. So now, if I ask how far away is the number 5, I know that I'm going to begin at 0 and start measuring from there. But wait a second, I need units to measure in. So on the number line, let's see, what's a convenient unit? I'm going to pick the distance from 0 to 1, this distance, as my unit distance. That means this distance is 1 unit, and I can measure the distance to any other number in terms of this unit. So, well, let's think about it. How far away is the number 5 from 0, from our origin or from our reference point? Since our unit is the distance from 0 to 1, well, up to 5, it's 5 units. Right? 2, 3, 4, 5. So the number 5 is 5 units away from 0. Now that I think about it, if I ask how far away is the number 10 from 0, well, the distance is equal to 10 units. How far away is the number 3.5 from 0? Well, it's 3.5 units away from 0. So this seems to be telling me that if I ask the distance of any positive real number, that distance is equal to the value of the number. For example, 100 is 100 units away. 200 is 200 units away. Pi is equal to pi units away from 0. So the distance from 0 to any positive real number, meaning the distance to a number on this side of the number line, is equal to the value of the number. What about on the other end? How far away is -1 from 0 on the real number line? Well, again, this was our unit distance. On how far away is this -1 from 0? It's equal to the unit distance, so 1 unit. How far away is -2? Well, if I measure again, this is 1 unit, and this is another unit. So that tells me that the distance of any negative real number from 0 is equal to negative the value of the number. Because, for example, here, the distance from 0 to -1 is 1, and 1 is the negative of -1. And the distance from 0 to -2 is 2, and that is negative of -2, which becomes a +2. Okay. Now I know that I'm going to be using the idea of distance over and over in the future, so let me give it some notation so I don't have to go through all of this again. Alright, let's see. We're going to use 2 vertical bars with a number in the middle to represent what is called absolute value. Of a number. In this case, it's x, which just stands for some number on the number line. So anytime I'm going to use this notation in the future, it is going to mean that I'm talking about the distance that x is away from 0. On the number line. Now, since I'm talking about the distance, the value of absolute value, this, is going to be always positive. Like we saw up here, if you notice, right here, the distance from 0 to 1 is 1 unit. The distance from 0 to 2 is 2 units. On the other hand, even if I measure distance to negative numbers, for example, distance from 0 to -1 is 1 unit. The distance from 0 to -2 is 2 units. So the distance is positive. And we can say that absolute value of x is equal to, well, whatever that x is when x is either 0 or greater than 0. And it is equal to -x if x is less than 0. It makes sense. So let's go back to the number line. Here I have my number line, and let's say here's my origin, my 0. If I want to know a distance to a positive number, let's say to 9, I know that the distance to 9, which is written as absolute value of 9, is going to be equal to 9, because that's how far away the number 9 is from 0. What about the distance to, let's say, -9? Well, that's the same as writing this. Remember, this I said means what is the distance that -9 is away from 0. Okay, -9, since I'm measuring it in units and the distance is always positive, -9 is equal to 9 units away from 0. Now, what we have here, this sort of definition, it means the same thing. Absolute value of x, we say, is equal to whatever that number was. Absolute value of some number is equal to that number if that number is greater than 0. For example, absolute value of 9 is equal to 9 since 9 is greater than 0. On the other hand, the absolute value of some number is equal to negative that number. Negative of -9 is positive since -9 was a number less than 0. Alright, I'm going to look at a few more examples on this. Let's see. Example number 1. What is the absolute value of 100? Well, absolute value is talking about the distance that that number is away from 0. So absolute value of 100 is asking me how far away is 100 from 0, and we know that is equal to 100 units. Example 2. What's the absolute value of -73? The question being asked of me is how far away is -73 from 0 on the number line? Well, if I go up here, it is saying if I'm taking the absolute value of a number and that number is less than 0, then absolute value is equal to negative of that number. Then this is equal to negative of -73. But that is equal to 73. Okay? Alright, let's look at another example. Number 3. What is the absolute value of, let's see. What is absolute value of -6 minus the absolute value of 4? Well, I do it separately. I know the absolute value of -6 is asking me how far away is -6 from 0 on the number line. I know that is 6 units. And from this, I'm taking away absolute value of 4. But absolute value of 4 is the distance 4 is away from 0, which is equal to 4. Then this is equal to 2.